Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of unfulfilled.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. We are at episode 84, and as I promised last week, we have a special guest, my friend, fellow James Wedmore coach, fellow intuition witchy woman, Jen Conger, and I'm so excited to have her on. So excited because she, in this episode, really shares her wisdom with us. She shares how she walks the walk of using your intuition. And she talks about her own journey of really feeling out of alignment in her business, out of alignment when she was in the corporate world, yet following what was known and not leaning on her gifts. And so we talk all about that in the episode. Jen is so amazing. Some of the things we cover, oh my gosh, like this episode's so good. There's a lot of stories. So Jen tells a story of the very first time or a strong time where she remembers her intuitive connection really with the spirit world, where that showed up in her life and what happened because of that. She shares a really crazy story that gave me chills all about this time that she heard this very clear message, and it literally prevented her from a massive life-changing event. Like, she could have died if she hadn't have listened to this voice. And we both share some other stories. It is such a fun conversation. And she also talks about a free 4-day live masterclass that she's doing called The Revolution of Intuition. And oh my gosh, I know when you hear about it, you're going to want to join. And it is a 4-day experience that kind of gives you a taste of this other way of connecting to your intuition. And in fact, on day 2, my human design coach, Lauren Armstrong, who has been on this podcast, she is talking about human design and your intuition. And I know you're going to love that. So if you want to register for this free 4-day event, I will be there. I highly recommend you be there. It's June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And you can register. I made a simple link for you. So it's alignful.com/revolution. So alignful.com, alignful.com/revolution. And that will take you directly to the sign up page for this workshop. And I'm so excited. If you have any questions about it, let me know. You can also find Jen on Instagram at Jen Conger, JenConger. And you're just going to love this conversation. I would be remiss not to tell you, you got to stay on till the end, because Jen, so the big thing that she talks about with intuition is tapping into your light team. So these are your spirit guides, your spirit team, and they include your higher self, or what we call your inner voice. So it's this team of spiritual guidance that is always looking out for you, nudging you, and guiding you. So at the very end, she channels a message from them for you guys that are listening. And it felt so good to hear and receive. We talk about activating your own light team. We do that together in the episode. We also talk about what intuition really is. So that might surprise you, the answer to that. So listen for that, because it might not be what you think. So really quickly, before I jump to the episode, a little bit more about Jen. So she... man, you're going to love her, but her bio, we'll just go through that. So for almost 20 years, she's brought a balanced combination of intuition and marketing strategy to the table when it comes to building a business. Her previous corporate experiences included launching Fortune 500 social media departments from the ground up, which quickly grew. creating 17,000 organic followers and multiple six figures in revenue. And that work really crystallized her obsession with helping brands create deeper relationships with their customers online. Yes. Despite financial success, though, as I mentioned, she found herself unhappy. As she sat down on the floor of her work bathroom, 4 months pregnant and having her first ever panic attack, she realized that no amount of fancy paychecks or job titles could fix the stress, imbalance, and fear in her life. It became clear that wealth and riches would not bring her true happiness or fulfillment. And she would instead need to awaken the spirit from within, the spirit that she had connected to. This is me, I'm going off. When she was young, she had such a strong connection, and then she shut that down early on. And so she wanted to reawaken that. So she walked out of her corporate career that day and began her own coaching business. I've personally worked with Jen. And now, after mentoring hundreds of online business owners, she firmly believes that business is a reflection of the soul that awakens to abundance, joy, and freedom when you do it. She combines spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and energetic work to transform the way we think, act, and behave. Her mission is to show you how to tune into your intuition and co-create with your non-physical light team so that you can have the business and life of your dreams. Oh, Jen, thank you so much for being here, and stick around again to the end to hear that channeled message. And if you want to join the revolution of intuition, I highly recommend it. It's alignful.com/revolution. It will all be in the show notes. And without further ado, here is this week's episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As I promised last week, we are joined by my magical friend, Jen Conger, and she is here. Oh my gosh, we're going to have the best conversation. We have been just wanting to have this podcast episode for a long time, and it finally aligned. So I'm really excited to invite her on. And as you heard in the intro, you got to hear all about Jen and why and how we're so aligned in our messaging and what we have to share with the world. And she really takes this above and beyond. And I will share, since we just did this is like, you're with your magical people. When we both started out we both had a spray. So I had an abundance spray. She had a calming spray that we cleanse the energy. We use our, selenite?
Yes, our selenite wands.
Yes, our selenite wands to clear some energy. And then she had a throat chakra oil and I had a stress cooling throat oil. So we're so ready. You have no idea.
We've got our crystals. I've got my amethyst in my hand that helps so much with opening the doors to your intuition and communicating with your divine light team. So I always put this in my hand when I do coaching calls and podcasts and interviews. Yeah, this is my go-to.
Ooh, that gave me chills. So amethyst is my birthstone, and also I've been on the hunt for the right amethyst crystal. So you just kind of brought that back into my realm. So I have to remember.
There's so many cool ones because I have another one that is an amethyst chevron, which holds a totally different vibe and energy. And it actually has white, it's almost like upside down triangle lines. So it has the chevron pattern in the crystal. And that one's also really powerful and very cool.
Oh, beautiful. Mm-hmm. Okay, noted.
You're like, okay, I'll just add that to the to-do list to go look at amethyst crystals on the internet after we get off this call.
Yeah, that's my kind of to-do list anyway, as you know.
Yes.
So, Jen, before we were getting on, a couple things happened. One, we were just chatting beforehand and you saw, what is it, a sandhill crane?
Yes. So we have this cute little pond in our backyard, and I just rearranged my office actually. This was an intuitive hit that told me I needed to rearrange my furniture in my office. And so now I've set up my desk so I face the backyard and I can see this pond. And I'm realizing the reason I was meant to do that was because I'm seeing all of these amazing little creatures. And so I have had on coaching calls with clients, three separate occasions, a bird come up with a worm in its mouth and just hang out right in front of my window, watching me for a good portion of the call. But then I don't see it at all any other time. It was just when I was on calls with clients. I'm like, okay, that's very interesting. That's definitely a sign from the universe. And then, right when we hopped on Zencaster to record this podcast, a beautiful sandhill crane, which I hardly ever see because they're very rare, flew into the pond, was hanging out. I showed you on my laptop screen. I was like, can you see him?
And I got to see him fly away.
Yes. Oh my God. So we got this divine, magical visitor right before we were about to talk on the podcast. And I think it was just setting us up for success for this conversation.
I agree. Yay. Thank you. Thank you, crane visitor.
Thank you, our spirit animals.
Yes. Oh, I know, the spirit animals. And then we were, as we were doing our little ritual recording, Jen said we could, and this is really the magic of Jen's work, so we may as well just dive into that right from the get-go, as you said we could call on our spirit team. And do you want to, and we thought, well, why don't we do that together on this call and record it? But would you like to talk about that a little bit more? So, people got an official introduction to you, but how about you share a little bit more? Like, what does this mean? My audience is definitely into all of the otherworldly items and concepts and all of it. So nothing is too different. I don't even, what word I don't want to use. I'm not using woo.
Yes, no.
Nothing is too
we need to retire that word.
Exactly. So these are 5D conversations, my friends, and we're going to no holding back here. So if you want to just talk a little bit, Jen, about how you came really to be this, or rather to step into your fullest expression of your witchy woman vibes, because I've seen it. Jen and I have known each other almost 2 years now. We're both coaches for James Wedmore. We met, we connected totally kind of on the same wavelength. But I've gotten to witness just in this short period of time, her really fully embracing her gifts, fully embracing her wisdom, and stepping into a completely different version of yourself. And it's been such a powerful transformation to see. And it's also been, she's given permission just by doing it herself. She's giving other people permission to step into this truth, step into their gifts, and to really honor and leverage what they have intuitively, right, on the inside. And she's taken that to the next level in her business. We're going to talk a lot about that on this episode, but also just in every aspect of your life. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that transformation and then where you are now, which will lead into calling on our spirit team for this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thank you so much for all your kind words. And thank you so much for your support in this journey, because you're right. If I look back 2 years ago when we first met and we were going through coaches training, I am a completely different person now. But the person that I am now is my truth, it's my authentic self. And over the last 2 years, I had to go through the journey of unlearning everything that I thought I was, being comfortable, being vulnerable and exposed and seen for who I truly am, and getting over fear of judgment, which is still there because it's filled with so many layers. And what supported me in that journey was our friendship and our relationship. And if it wasn't for you, I don't know if I would be here in the fullest expression of myself, living this life where I have the opportunity now to talk about intuition and talk about your light team and co creating with your spirit guides. It's like never in a million years would I think that my business would turn this way, but it feels so right. It feels on purpose. And I was just telling my Miracle Morning partner this morning that I'm incredibly grateful for now finally having a business that is 100% me, not what I think other people want.
That just gave me so many chills.
Yeah.
I remember when we had this really, where I really saw Jen's powers. I'm going to call them powers because that's what it feels like. But where I saw you in your essence is how I would describe that, is when we were at that BBD Live event. We all got together, like we were having some drinks, we were having a fun time, and we went back to the room, and Jen's like, oh, what did you say? I think you said something to the effect of like, I'm low-key psychic. And you said it so casually, and I'm like, oh, and you're like, I have a deck and we can pull cards. And I thought, oh, that's cool. Because as much as I was into like other realms and interested, I hadn't actually spent much time with energy work at the time, from like the metaphysical kind of aspect of that. And I thought, oh, this is cool. Like I've not really had my cards on, maybe once before. And you said it so casually. And then we had, which, we had some really, everyone you read for, it was Kimmy, which has been on the podcast, Candace, who has been on the podcast.
Yes.
And you and Langley, everyone that you read for, it was like this deep connection to them. And we'd known you for just not at all. Like we just didn't know you very deeply or hadn't known you very long. It was like, what? And I know personally something that came through. I mean, it changed the trajectory of one of my old, like closest friendships, and I was like, oh my gosh. I, of course, only wanted information about my business, because everything I always do, I'm like, just tell me, help me with my business, rest of life, whatever. And it totally changed the trajectory of that friendship to this day, 2 years later. And it shocked me. I think we were all in tears, and it was just so powerful. And I remember afterward thinking, low key psychic, whatever, like whatever this is, we need more of this in our life. And that to me was really this like starting point for me to see, right? Yeah, you'd been on your own journey like leading up to then, but for me, it was like you allowed us to see you fully in that element. And it was a gift. And it's just continued to evolve as you allow others to see that in you, and just you've become that so beautifully.
Well, thank you. And I think it's really interesting to have that reflected back to me as well, because at the time I did think like this isn't really that special, and it kind of felt like, oh, this is a cool parlor trick that I'm going to pull out at parties because people are curious about it and it's fun. And that night changed my life as well, because what was flowing through for you guys was so strong and powerful, and like we all felt it in a way that I had never experienced before. But what we can do is maybe call in our light teams to support us on the call, and then I would love to share some stories. I know you asked and I didn't really answer the question yet about my journey and uncovering my gifts and really leaning into them.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's call them in, and then you can tell them what the light team is.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and call that in. Is there anything the audience should or could do while you're doing this?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I mean, we can take some deep breaths and get grounded into our bodies and just relax. And I would invite them to say this prayer out loud or in their heads and return to it as often as they feel called to connect with their light team. So, your light team is your non physical team that is supporting you from the other dimensions. This includes your higher self, so your soul. It includes spirit guides, ancestors, ascended masters and teachers, galactic teams for most of us. If you are called to this podcast, I guarantee you that you have a galactic team and you're an alien. Your angels, your archangels, the whole gambit of all of them that have been either assigned to you or supporting you in your work that you're doing in this physical world. And so, a lot of what I now do in my business is I co create with them. So I'm calling them in all of the time. I'm communicating with them, and they're my team. They're my business team and my life team. They're everything. So let's go ahead and say a prayer and bring in our light teams for this amazing conversation we're going to have.
All right. I'm widening my pelvic floor. I'm sitting up, breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we'll just do a few cleansing breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Let's do one more big deep breath in and out through the mouth. And calling on the most purest crystal white light of the highest dimensions to enter into this space, sealing it as a sacred healing space for my highest good and the highest good of those around me. I would love to invite in my light team of highest spirit guides, angels and archangels, ascended masters and teachers, ancestors, my galactic team, and all of those supporting me in the work that I am meant to do here in this physical plane. I thank you for your presence in this space. I open up myself to receive your divine guidance. Use me as a channel to spread your words of love for the highest good of humanity. I honor you with love and compassion. I honor you with love and compassion. I honor you with love and compassion. Amen. And you may even feel the energy shift in your space, that it feels lighter, it feels calmer, it feels safe, it feels like being held.
I feel it.
Yeah. So I love to do that before I have any call. And I also love to do it before I create. So before I write an email or social media content or anything like that. And I open up the doors to channeling their divine wisdom and love. And I also am setting up protection to make sure that anything that flows through is always from a source of love and for the highest good.
Yeah, which when we're working with energy work, and I found this out the hard way, when we're working with energy, it is important to set that intention and expectation for what is allowed. And you said, what did you say? Crystal light or something higher?
Yeah. Yeah. The purest, most crystal white light of the highest dimensions.
Yeah. And so we don't want to mess with, we don't need to mess with the dark arts in
Mm-hmm.
order to tap into this support team. You know, you specifically call it your light team.
Yeah.
And I think that's so perfect because, you know, life as we're going through life is things can get dark, things can get heavy, and we can come up against challenges and doubts and fears and, you know, even the darkness that the mind can create. And so it's so beautiful to remember that at all times we are truly surrounded by this light team and are able, by like what you said, by tapping into this prayer and setting this intention, to reconnect with that is already within us and without.
And they're giving me a message already right now. And they're bringing me to the poem Footprints in the Sand. It's by an unknown author. It's never been assigned to somebody, but are you familiar with it? So it's a poem about this person is telling their journey of walking next to, I believe it's Jesus or God, on a beach. And through all of the wonderful, joyous, happy filled times of their lives, they saw two sets of footprints in the sand. But during their darkest, most difficult times of their life, they only saw one. And so they asked God, why is it when I needed the most help, you abandoned me? And God said, well, it was then that I was carrying you.
Wow.
And it's such a beautiful poem. But my light team is bringing me to that as a reminder that they're here for you in the darkest times. And it's in those times where we're really trying to handle things on our own and feel like, oh, I don't need to go get help, or I can handle this, I can figure this out. It's like in those moments where we really need to be communicating with them and asking for help and guidance the most, when we don't think about it sometimes or are forgetting to do that. So it's just a beautiful reminder that when you're coming up against things, remind yourself, sort of set that intention to, I'm going to remember that I have help, that I can communicate with them. I can ask them to carry me. They're here.
You're making me cry.
Oh,
I feel like they're talking to me. Thank you.
yes.
I have had many readings with Jen, and yeah, every time, even the most minute things, like it hits home. And even that message, it's like, and sometimes you don't know mentally that that's something that's going on, but when your energy in your body shifts and when, tears come up or you feel tingles or warmth, or to me, that landed right in my solar plexus. It's just a way for your body to communicate the messages that are coming through and to kind of nudge you to receive them.
Yeah, it's a big energetic release too, because sometimes what happens in readings as well is when somebody has an emotional response, there's a resonance. So that emotional response is letting you know, this is my truth. This is resonating with me. But also, there's stuck energy there that's creating blockages in your co creation energy, right? Your ability to create what it is that you want to be creating in your existence. So your light team is coming in and they're helping you remove those emotional blockages, and they're clearing the energy for you, which has been something that's fascinating for me because I didn't realize that until I started really getting into my intuitive practice, that they're healing me at night in my dreams. I've been visited by them while they were working on my body in my sleep. And when I'm having emotional responses and I'm focusing on their energy, I can literally feel the tension release in my body and things start flowing. So, and the other thing too that's coming up to me is like, if you're feeling really drained and tired and you don't have enough energy, you can be like, hey, light team, give me some more energy. And they can feed you energy. It's insane. It's insane.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, tapping into that. And, where this is kind of leading me in terms of this conversation is twofold. And one is and I want your take on this, but we're born with this light team, with this intuitive wisdom, with this knowing, this true self, right? As you were saying, you came back to that on your own. And yet it's like every year, especially as we become adults, like we get kind of sullied. And it's like we're rolling through the dirt, and then we're rolling through the mud, then we're rolling through the clay, and then it's all caked over and our receptors are dulled.
What a great metaphor. Yeah.
It's like, it's what I see. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see someone like caked in like a red dirt. And so this work is we're starting to chip off the thick layers. Then we're starting to like dust ourselves off. Then we buff it. Then it's like a rinse clean, so that that's when you're in that kind of sparkly energy field that some of us may have felt while you called on the light team. And we can get dusty and dirty again, and then we can clean ourselves off. But this other realm, right? The 5D, this experience of what is not 3D, what cannot be seen, heard, tasted directly in our sights, is actually our most natural state that we've just been conditioned to dismiss or miss altogether.
Yep, absolutely. And if you even think about experiences you had as a child, you might be able to remember times where you were having a psychic experience, an intuitive experience, and what conditioning ended up having you ignore it, turn it off, be afraid of it, whatever it might be, that has now led you to a point where it is caked with all that dirt and clay, and there's healing and cleansing and deconditioning and unlearning that needs to go on to bring you back to it. But yes, we're all born with this. It's not an ability. It is one of our senses. It is our sixth sense. But we get so wrapped up in our five senses because this physical reality is so mesmerizing that we forget and we don't pay attention to the sixth sense. But once you begin to do that cleansing, it opens up the door. And then before you know it, you're receiving very clear guidance on a regular basis. And you're in constant communion with your higher self and your light team. And your life totally transforms as a result of that.
Now, as you said that, speaking about being a child, did you feel more in tune with this when you were younger? And did you have any experiences that either shocked you out of it or brought you back to this wisdom?
I was visited by spirits as a child. And I remember all the way up until probably about age 8 or so, regularly being visited in my bedroom in the daytime and the nighttime, all the time, by beings and people communicating with me. And one experience that really sticks out is the house that I lived in for the majority of my life. We moved in when I was 5 and moved out when I was 18, was built by hand by the man that we bought it from. So he was the previous owner. He passed away in the house in his sleep, and he kept coming to visit me. And there was some work that my dad was doing down in this kind of sunken living room extra space that they had, an addition that they had put onto the house. And my dad was doing work in that area. And this old man kept visiting me and telling me he didn't like what my dad was doing in this addition area. And I remember telling my dad, you can't do that. The old man doesn't like it. Like, you can't do that. And that's one experience that really sticks out because my parents at that time were like, whoa, she is really communicating with somebody and something is really going on. I remember one time my mom being in my bedroom at night because something had come and it had scared me, and it was at the end of my bed and it wouldn't leave. Most of the time I would just say, go away. And they listen, they leave, and they honor what you say because we have free will. And for whatever reason, this thing wasn't leaving. And I remember my mom being there with me saying, just call on your angels and they will come in and protect you. And she prayed over me. And that was really an incredible experience because I think, oh, that's exactly what I'm doing now. And like my mom knew too what the answer was. But it's pretty typical that around that 7 or 8 year old age, we begin to lose this connection, if you will, because it's never really gone. Just our attention to it begins to dissipate and fade. And there's a lot going on with your brain development at that age. And so for the first 7 or 8 years of your life, you're kind of like in walking hypnosis, is my understanding. And then once the brain is developed to a certain point, things are really locked in, and so much changes with our brain function and things like that, that we get really, really just into this physical reality. So I would say that I was always interested in ghosts and the afterlife and all of that, but I didn't really start exploring my intuition again until I was 21. So I had a really incredible experience where I was in college at the time in Orange County, and I was dating a guy that lived in San Diego. And I used to drive every Thursday night after my classes ended to visit him for the weekend and then come back Sunday
Oh
night
man.
before classes began. So this is a drive that I was doing like all the time every week. So I'm in the fast lane and I'm driving way too fast. I know I was going like 80, 90 miles an hour in the fast lane, just trying to get there. And I heard something in my head, like a thought that said, slow down and pull over. And I'm like, that was really weird. Like, that didn't feel like my own thoughts. That felt like something different. And then I heard it again, slow down and pull over. And I ignored it. I just kept driving because I'm like, what is this thing talking to me? Like, is that my own thought? It feels different. It feels like somebody's in the back seat talking to me. This is so bizarre. And then the third time it said it, it was as if it was yelling at me. And I had like a body reaction. Like, it made me jolt. I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this, whatever it is. So I took my foot off the gas and I started veering over to the slow lane. And as I'm doing that, I'm seeing headlights bouncing back and forth behind me on the freeway. And I thought, oh, somebody's racing. And sure enough, these two cars went speeding past me, and right before my eyes collided with the other cars on the freeway. And there was this horrific car crash, like a movie. And I remember slamming on my brakes and fishtailing across the freeway back and forth, like totally lost control of my car. I'm driving through glass and car parts, and I'm passing cars that are just stopped on the freeway. And I passed by one of the cars that was racing, and it was just completely crunched like an accordion on the center divider. And that's where I would have been. I would have been there because that's where I was driving. And so I remember calling 911 and just kind of being very panicky. I know for sure people lost their lives that night. There's just no way that it was different than that. And I pulled off because the 911 operator told me, you need to just go to a well lit area, someplace safe where you can relax before you get back out on the road. And it dawned on me in that moment, something saved my life. Something talked to me. And because I listened to it, I'm alive right now. And then that just started this whole spiritual journey of like, okay, there really is, this isn't just something that's fun to talk about and like curious and like, oh, it's kind of cool. No, this is like legit. This is real. So I think for so many of us, we have an experience that has allowed us to know there is something going on in the non-physical, that there is a heaven and earth. There is angels and spirit guides. I mean, there is something going on. And for many of us, it takes an experience like that to begin this journey into uncovering who we truly are.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's so powerful. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be right that extreme. We can choose at any moment to start to soften. I think of it, your spidey senses, right? It's so much more. It is about slowing down and pulling over in this grander scheme of life. Is we're so busy. We're so conditioned. We think things have to be one way or another, and we go, 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 go. And because of that, and it's all mind and it's all 3D world, is we rarely slow down enough even to like sense our bodies, right? How many times have, you had clients or people who are like, my body is exhausted, but they just keep going. They don't even listen to their physical body, let alone like, which I believe we're often, like we were saying, the physical body is a manifestation of what's going on in the, your non-physical, and it's nudging you into the 3D world so you can pay attention. But we just, and as you guys, I'm like rubbing my fingers together. This is because that's kind of how I'm trying to describe it. But it's like we're sensing into the energy field, like what else is out there. But in order to sense that, at least at first, as you're coming back to this, is we need to be able to slow down. We need to be able to pause, even just for a few minutes, and to breathe and receive. Right? The receptive state is so much different than the active. What's the word? Like, so there's the initiative state, and then there's the receptive state. And we live our lives in initiation and going and doing, and we rarely receive. So it's like, it's no wonder when people start on this journey, they're like, well, this doesn't make sense. It's not real because I can't feel it. When in fact, you've probably been feeling it, but just didn't either connect to what it was or listen or have that bigger awareness of, like, how is that actually pulsating into your life and guiding you, like you experience so profoundly.
And it's really interesting because I hadn't even thought of the fact that even what they said in the literal sense, slow down and pull over, is a beautiful metaphor for all of life. That hadn't even dawned on me until you said that, but it's so true. And my light team has also, I've channeled a lot of teachings and information from them about what our intuition is and how it even works. And what they've communicated to me is that our intuition is the process in which we translate their energetic transmissions. So our light team is constantly sending us communications in the form of energy. Everything is energy. Just everything is energy. And so they're sending energetic transmissions. It's not a language, it's an energy, but then our body is receiving it like an antenna, which is why your mind body soul connection is so vital to your allowance of receiving the guidance that's being transmitted to you. So your body is the antenna, it's receiving that energy. It actually flows all the way through your chakra system and it gets activated by the earth, which is why the earth is so important because it's the main part of the connector between the non-physical and the physical. So it gets activated by the earth, it returns back up through our bodies, and then our body is receiving that energy and translating it into a communication that makes sense to us in the physical world. So that's why so many people have different forms of intuition. Like you saw somebody being covered in dirt and red clay and needing to be cleansed. You're very visual, psychic, visual, clairvoyant. I'm the same way. I see a lot of visions. Then you have people that are clairaudient and they're hearing things. They're really being able to decipher between their own mind ego thoughts and the thoughts that are communication from their light team. But there's so many different ways that we're receiving this information and translating it, and it's unique to everybody, but everybody is able to do it.
That makes my mind so excited, my ego mind, because
Yeah.
so we'll bring this in briefly so I talk about inner voice work, right? Which is your higher self, which, as you described, is part of your light team, which I love, right? It's one of the team members. It's most directly you, right? It's a different vibration of your essence, but it's connected to, I say it is you, it is of you, it is within you, it is without you, and it is beyond you. And
So good.
right. So it's like, and it's it's tapped into this whole team. Well, one of the things that I remember sharing to my audience, and this is so exciting to have you have confirmed this, because people ask me a lot, it's like, well, what's the difference between intuition and inner voice? And my take has always been, your inner voice communicates through your intuition.
Yes.
And I am so psyched about how you described that, how that message was channeled to you, because because I couldn't really describe that. I'm just like, this is what I sense is that like, it's communicating through, it's not your intuition. Your intuition is like the conduit to how you're
Process.
right. And it's like what people, again, in the 3D world they can get that. Like I knew that. I sensed that, but they don't quite have the words for like how that's coming through. And then you're describing so well, like how everything's connected. And like, so, and the way you describe that, you can tell I'm visual, right? Because if you guys can see me on video, I can't stop using my hands. Because like I see things and I'm trying to connect them. And Jen, I love getting to talk to people who are so tapped in because I like that reflection. I also know it helps others who are trying to experience this. But for me, a lot of times when I either bring people into receiving mode to do an inner voice session or am just helping them, one thing for me is I've really been practicing calling my own energy back at the end of each day. I didn't realize how much energy I just leave around. I'm like an energy slut. I'm like, everyone can have some. So I'm like calling it back. But what I sense when I do that is like it becomes this container where I feel my feet grounded in like that pulsation of the earth. And then I feel the pulsation up here. And it's like those two combined create like this little eggshell container that brings me back to myself. Almost like how you described when we called in the light team at the beginning. Like it just feels like this self-contained, but I can sense the importance of like the grounding of the earth and then like, you know, the earth and sky, rooting and rising, those kind of complementary energies.
Yeah. I think it was really eye-opening for me too, because, I always thought, oh, I just feel better when I'm in nature. And I lived by the beach for such a long period of my life and spent so much time at the ocean and always felt good being at the ocean. And, I'm from Southern California and now I live here in Omaha, Nebraska in the Midwest. And it's so different seasonally. And the world, the earth is just completely different here. The energy is different. Everything's different about it. And I was really just staying inside my house all the time because it's very cold here compared to what I'm used to. And I was getting, we talk about seasonal depression out here, and I was for sure getting that. And I just didn't realize how much the earth influences our energy, our mood, our thoughts, our behavior, our feelings until I received that communication. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's vital that I'm spending more time out in nature. It's vital that I'm connecting with the trees and the grass. And now I understand from an intellectual standpoint why that's important and why it helps us. So that in and of itself was like really eye opening for me, our connection to earth.
Yeah. And it's, whatever the frequency, right, is of the earth, I imagine it helps, manage our own frequency. Cause like whenever I talk to inner voices, pretty much without fail, it's like, what do you want your human to do more of? It's like, be outside. And so what I practice is I trust that knowing and that wisdom and that voice, and I follow it and I know it helps. But then again, for the mind to intellectually understand, like you're going to be sent to be outside or called to be outside and it feels good, but here's that little extra information to help you, right? Knowing from the mind versus knowing from that inner part of you, from that bigger picture. I think it's nice to have both because then we're more likely to follow.
Yeah. And that's why, even if you think about it, that's why sometimes you get like some of your most profound downloads or intuitive hits, whatever you want to call them, when you're out for a walk or a jog or a run, or you're in the shower because water is earth energy and from the earth. And so you're in the shower and you're like getting all of these like brilliant ideas and these things that are really lighting you up, or you just get some clarity around something that you were questioning in your mind. And it's because you're being activated by the earth that is supporting your body being able to translate the energetic transmissions that it's receiving. So it's supporting your light team, but it's also supporting you because it's just making that whole energetic communication happen more seamlessly. It's like you're giving more power to it because you're activating with earth energies.
I love that. That
Yeah.
makes me so
Yeah.
happy.
I have something that's coming through that they've now reminded me like 3 or 4 times. Okay, because you brought up like I'm just giving my energy away. So back like right when we were getting into the pandemic, I want to say, I can't remember if it was before or after the pandemic, but I was having a reading with a coaching client, and they showed me this vision of her walking through the woods, and she had this long dress on, and she was picking up crystals off of the forest floor and putting them in her dress. And she was like hoarding them. She had this whole dress full of crystals, and they were literally telling her, hoard your energy. Gather up all those crystals and hoard your energy because you're going to need it. You're going to need your energy. And I want to say shortly thereafter, we went into lockdown, or we were just dealing with the lockdown. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because when I got off of that reading, my light team was like, that's a message for the collective. You need to share that. And I think I shared it with the BBD coaches. And I think I went in my stories. I may have done a live, and I was like, okay, we need to hoard our energy. But they're bringing me back to that because we think from an ego mind perspective that we're creating more of what we want through spending our energy in the action we're taking, right? Like if I'm not making the amount of money that I want in my business, it must mean I'm not doing enough and that I need to do more because I'm only on Instagram. Maybe I need a Facebook group. Maybe I need to start a podcast. Oh, actually, I should be doing this and this and this. Like we can go crazy with that. And so then we will compensate by adding more to our to-do list and more to our plate. When in actuality, what's going to serve us better in manifesting what we want in our business and in our lives is by hoarding our energy, being protective of it, because you need that energy to receive divine communication from your light team. And so when you make that transition from I'm living in the 3D world and I'm taking all the action and I'm doing all the things and I'm exhausted and I'm hustling and I'm overworked and I can't stop and I know I really need rest, but I don't want to give myself permission to it. And when you make the transition to the rest is the work, like we talk about all the time, and you can move from, ooh, how can I be really protective of my energy? How can I say no more? How can I get into my own energetic flow? How can I give myself the time to pause and slow down and move over? When you make that transition, you'll start to see all the opportunities just start coming your way. Oh, this client just found you because of like somebody referred you. You didn't even have to do anything, and they're dying to work with you, and they reach out on Instagram and you talk to them once and now they're a client. Like I've had that happen multiple times. It wasn't through my efforting, it was through my beingness and me being tapped into the energetic life flow and harnessing the power of my intuition connected me energetically with the people that I meant to serve. So it's like, oh, if I can just kind of spend more time resting and in meditation, I could actually create what I want because I'm hoarding my energy. That's fabulous. And this is the new paradigm that we're entering into. This is 5D consciousness, is that you're creating through your being, not through your doing.
Yeah. And of course, when you were saying right before that, when you're talking about all the ways that we've received the downloads or the insights, all of those, I was going to say, and of course, like it's so perfect, is notice how all of those are the non-doing.
Totally.
Those are, that's going to come through because what's happening is when you shift from the doing, from the initiative energy to the being, that's the receiving. And imagine when we're opening ourselves to receiving, how much more we can receive. I've had the exact same. In fact, if anyone listens to last week's episode that came out just before this one, I talk about my own transition and what started to unfold by living more of that, right? More play, more experiencing more finding my own joy versus fighting my reality. And yeah, it shifts things. It really
Yeah.
does. And
Yeah.
and when you're so how do you, I mean, you're doing this, so this is your work. You do these kind of one-off intuitive readings, which are powerful. It's like having a one-off inner voice session, like comparable in terms of like people are going to get tapped in. You're going to be able to tap into their energy. They'll feel very calm and probably insightful afterward. But beyond that, what is your experience? Like, what are you up to, and how do you help people? Because really, people are going to listen to this whole conversation and be like, oh, this sounds great, right? Conceptually, yeah, it sounds great. But what do we know about the minds? The minds are like, well, how? These things all sound nice, but like, I can't just stop. I can't just, I don't understand. I can't just channel information like you, Jen. Like, how do you help people experience more of this being and more of their light team in their lives so that they can have more ease, more receptivity, more abundance?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do work privately with clients. I'm doing less and less one off sessions and doing more
Mm.
6 months together. And the reason why is because I've noticed exactly what you're describing. There's one thing to understand it conceptually and to receive some guidance that's going to support you in the present. It's one totally different thing to go on a journey of embodying your authentic self and being in that constant communion and communication with your light team and actively co creating with them. So I work privately in typically 6 month spread with clients where, we might be working on a launch or we might be working on a new offer or where it tends to be business related. But the idea is let's create more ease and flow. Let's harness the power of your intuition. Let's set up some daily practices and routines around tapping into your guidance and just go on the journey of like really exploring what will change for you in your business and your life when you're embodying these concepts. So that's one way. And then I also have a mastermind that, again, was totally intuitively and divinely created. So I really started making this transition for myself of embodying this work in my business and when the pandemic first happened. So last year in March, I had two kiddos who were 3 and 5 at the time, and schools shut down. So now all of a sudden, all this time that I was spending on my business, which at the time never felt like enough, was taken away from me. And I was a homeschooling mom. And I came to this crossroads of like, okay, I can either keep trying to hustle, which is actually not working, or I just give up on the business because I can't keep doing both. And instead, the answer that flowed through me was just use me, just use your intuition. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. I'm just going to only use my intuition. I'm just going to only do what my intuition is telling me to do. And I'm going to run my business that way. And all of a sudden, and I just looked at my numbers yesterday, actually, I was making on average about $1,000 a month in my business because it was like struggle bus always. It was highs and lows and it was very difficult. And when I made that decision, 2 months later, I had an $8,000 month and then a
Ah,
$12,000
oh
month
my gosh.
while I was homeschooling my kids and just
Yeah.
barely working like on the weekends. I mean, I was having client calls on the weekends because I'm like, I can't meet with you during the week. But everybody understood it was an interesting time. And now in 2021, the first 8 days of 2021, I made my entire revenue of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, okay, there's something to this. So around September, my light team was like, okay, you really need to create a group where you walk women through exactly what you've been doing, using your intuition, following that guidance, and opening up to receiving more abundance through those channels. And so I started a mastermind in October. We're just about to wrap up, and I'm ready to start a new cohort. And that has been amazing because it's so fabulous seeing the women go through this journey together and supporting one another. They're getting together outside of our calls and relying on each other to build their businesses, really remain dedicated to tuning into their intuition. And they're all experiencing like huge quantum leaps. They're doing things that have been on their heart to do for years, and they've finally given themselves permission to do it. And so this has like been a really exciting journey for me to listen to my intuition and create this group. And so that's another opportunity, and really is a beautiful way to tap into a community as well. Because one of the things that I keep hearing over and over again from them is like, we're having conversations that I'm just not comfortable having anywhere else because people aren't talking about these same topics. Like I went to a neighborhood barbecue and I told them a little bit about the astrology that I'm learning, and they all made fun of me. And it's like, it's that safe community where you can really be you, which is exactly what I had with you when I was first exploring my gifts and using them more publicly. So there's that as well.
And I'm so jazzed about this, your mastermind, and we have to tell them about first of all, this name. So Jen's doing, if you want to experience, so like it all sounds amazing, but also might be a little intangible, especially if people are like, oh, I want this, but I don't really know how. But you are doing, is it 5 days?
So I'm doing a free 4-day masterclass series. It's going to kick off on June 1st, and it's called Revolution of Intuition. So this is all about revolutionizing your openness to receive abundance, clarity, communicating with your light team. And it is just this mini taste and sneak peek of the energetic and intuitive work that we do inside the mastermind. So, yes, I would love to welcome everybody to that. Join me because it's free and it's going to be an amazing experience. Whether or not you're even interested in the mastermind or at the end decide that you would want to be a part of it, just sign up for this because these 4 days will transform you. And it's going to open up the door. It's going to plant the seed and open up the door to so much more than I think even our minds can realize or comprehend.
Yeah. And I'm like, when you told me about each day, I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited to participate because I want to be, I'm always looking to deeper my connection to others who are in this work and my own understanding and my own connection to my light team. And it's truly, I haven't really tapped into my light team. I've tapped in, I follow my inner voice and I'm very tuned into that, but I'm excited to open the doors. And I can imagine, just as you said at the beginning, is just to start invite more of that in. And I know being a part of these 4 days is going to help that. Will you tell me again, what were the 4 days? What were the topics? Because I don't know, guys,
Yes.
You got to check this out. We'll put the link and everything in the bio, but I'm going to just highly recommend you all jump in because it's free, as Jen said, but it's also going to get you deeper into this work. I know if you're listening, you're interested in this work and you're interested in exploring it for yourself. And this is just a way to go even further and into different realms of exploration of self.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so good. I feel like I need to change the opt-in page, different realms of exploration of self. So good. So on day 1, we are doing tapping into your intuition to call in abundance. So you're going to learn why your relationship with your intuition impacts your openness to receive abundance of money, time, and energy, kind of like what we touched on in this conversation. You'll discover the ways to work with your intuition so that you can really revolutionize your business and your life and create massive change. On day 2, we're talking about, and I know you're going to love this, Dana, how you access your intuition by way of your human design.
Oh, yay!
So human design is a big component of the mastermind because your human design, I feel like it's the ultimate permission giver to really allow yourself to be uniquely you. And it helps you begin to cleanse off all those dirty layers of all of the conditioning and things that you grew up with in your life where people told you you are this or you are that. You're like, actually, no, I'm not. Here's my human design. And it really helps you return to yourself. And so one of my co-coaches is going to be joining me to co-host and lead day 2. So we're going to tap into your unique human design, and we're going to talk about how you access your intuition via your human design, what your human design says about your intuitive abilities.
And I'm so excited about that because y'all, everyone on the podcast knows it's Lauren Armstrong, who is my coach.
Yes.
And she's been on the podcast and we talked a little bit about human design and like intuition. And she's a projector. She's here to guide and so good at like helping you understand yourself. So anyone who's listened to her episode I know a lot of people who have listened have started following Lauren, is like, how cool to start bringing that element. And she's going to be part of the whole mastermind, which to me, I think is the most amazing way to, combine these things, right? It's like, that's a deep level of expertise, human design, but to be able to make it palatable and connect it to this work that you're doing, I think is just, it's next level. So I'm so excited that you guys are doing that as well.
Yes. And like super, super juicy. Nobody even knows this yet. So this is like exclusive info. Everybody that joins the mastermind gets a free 1-hour private human design reading with Lauren.
Oh my God.
And every month she's joining us for a group coaching session inside the program.
So that's something. Oh my gosh. Okay, guys.
She's phenomenal.
I'm like, am I sign up? I work with her and I still want more private. I'm like, I want more private readings. I want more private readings with you always as well. Like this kind of work.
I know. I love it. And we have such a good time together every time.
We do. Okay. So day 3, sorry, I like went off on a tangent.
No, I love it. So day 3 is you're going to experience an Akashic record reading and an energy healing ceremony. So we didn't even get into the Akashic records quite yet, but that is where your soul book and the energy of your soul, your higher self, is housed. And it's just a frequency. So if you think about it like a radio dial, when I am connecting with my light team, maybe I'm on 100.7. But when I'm connecting to my Akashic records, maybe I'm on like 200.7. It's just a different frequency. So the energy that you're calling in and you are translating is from a different vibration. So I do Akashic record reading. So I'll be reading the group and the group's energy and really tapping into what divine messages the Akashic records and our light teams, our higher selves, have for us. And we're also going to have an energy activation led by one of my other co-coaches, Gabriella Capobianco, who is also a phenomenal energy healer. She brings in ascended masters and teachers. She brings in different light codes of energy. And she also reads the energy of the group and then creates an energy healing experience based on the energy of the group. So that's going to be amazing on day 3. And then day 4, our last day together, is focused on the sacred journey to meet your true self. So as we talked about, your path of your intuition is always going to lead you back to who you truly are. So you're going to learn the stages of awakening and how each stage of awakening plays a role in your abundance, in your business, in your life. We're going to get into how you finally stop and break those sabotaging cycles and those patterns that are keeping you stuck, sort of recycling and re-experiencing the same thing over and over again, so we can create new and move forward in a new direction and begin to manifest what it is you really want. So those are the 4 days. Jam-packed.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It's June 1 through
4.
4?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone, we will put this in the show notes. It will come out in the email that goes out about this. But the easiest way is through the show note link, but also Jen on Instagram, Jen Conger. So JenConger. You'll probably, I imagine, have a link in your bio that goes to that. And although we'll set up a link too that so everyone can like dive in easily through the show notes and everything. But is there anything else you want to share? I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited that we got to sit down and actually finally have this conversation. I only can trust and know that we're going to have another conversation on the podcast, because
Yes.
I know this is taking people further into this work, and I know that there is a desire for that. So anything else you want to share before I let you go? And just kind of keep on shining through your day.
Yeah, I'm going to tune into the energy of the listeners, and I'm going to see what our light teams would like us to know. Okay, so they're showing me a flower, and it's it it's at that point where it's finally ready to open up its petals and really spread its wings and live, in the fullest expression of itself. And they're saying you are all like flowers beginning from a bud and sprouting up into the world, embracing the sun and the light and the energy around you, and opening up your petals to receive all of the divine goodness that's being ushered to you. So you don't create from a closed bud. You create from your petals being open and receiving all of the light and the sun and the energy around you. So they're inviting everybody into opening up their full expression. What a powerful metaphor.
Oh, I feel that so deeply. Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Now I'm going to tease people at the beginning when I record the intro and say, tune into the end, because you're going to get a very special channeled message.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is just my mind saying, is like, it's the way to start opening that bud. Like, let's do the 4 days, do this revolution of intuition, like allow yourself to experience this touch point of other realms, of other parts of yourself beyond the 3D, and allow yourself, right, to start to unfurrow and open those petals. Yum.
Yes, yes, yes.
Jen, thank you so much. I love you. I adore you. I am so excited just to have gotten to share this journey, witnessing your journey, but also share it on the podcast. I'm excited for your freaking program, Revolution of Intuition, the free day, and your mastermind, and just everything that is, you're just skyrocketing. And it's just such an honor to get to see you living that and leading by example and really living this truth. So thank you for being that for me and for everyone else to experience.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love and adore you. And it's such an honor to come and share this information. And I can't wait to do it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And everybody who listened, thank you. Again, you can find Jen on Instagram at Jen Conger, Conger. And we will have the links for everything in the show notes. And please reach out to Jen, tag us both on Instagram, and tell us what your takeaway was, what you're excited, if you're joining Revolution of Intuition, and feel free to share that with anyone else who you think this might enlighten, right? Help them find that enlightenment within them as well. And until next time, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans, or find me on my website at alignful.com.